Ralphoff here. Getting ready to jump into the first video of the series on making a menu system for an RPG. I'll be using an existing menu system from a game. It's not exactly from the retail release, but if you're familiar with Skyrim, there have been a lot of updates since that game came out 10 years ago, and a lot of mods, and the modding community has made this really nice menu system here called SkyUI. This is just an example I'm running with, but I think a lot of these ideas will be applicable to other styles of menu systems. But just to give you a rough overview of what's going on here before we get started, there's essentially different categories of items up here at the top, like weapons, armor, generic items, food. And then below that, there's just this table that displays one item per line. Some nice icons here to help figure out what we're looking at. And then these are just a bunch of different things that are relevant for the items. So what type of item, what material it's made from, damage, weight, value. Any of those things are sortable. And you can scroll through this list. And then as you select something in that list, it's going to display over here on the right. And it's going to give you a little more info about it and an image. So that's the general format I'll be going for in this video. I'll share links to all the files for this project so you can download it and follow this all yourself. I'll be trying to keep a nice commit history too, so if you want to step through the different steps in the project using Git, I'll make that easy to do. So yeah, here we go. Just going to get started with this. So just to show you what this is at first too. Sorry, give me just a second to get these files pulled up here. Sorry, I lost my setup. There we go. Okay, cool. So let's turn that off. So kind of what we need starting out is just a way to have a scrollable list of buttons here. So ultimately, all those menu items that we show over on the left, we're going to want a way to go through them and select them. So for that, I'm going to be relying on buttons to do that, and then we also need a like scrollable container and a scroll bar and all the things that go along with that to make that happen. So here's kind of a minimal example of this running, and you can see here I can drag the scroll bar. And then as I go over these buttons, it may not come through super clearly, but there's a highlight state for each of them. And then I can click on them. And at the moment, these don't do anything. It'll be pretty trivial to wire them up to do what we want them to do. But there's enough in just getting this set up that this will be a good thing to focus on for one video here. So I'm just going to go ahead and stop this. And we're going to just rebuild pretty much all of this stuff. So give me a second to get a little reference pulled up here so I can go through this efficiently on my side. So before I tear all this down, I'm just going to run through kind of what these things are and what we're going to need to do this. So the first thing you're going to need is a UI canvas. You always want to make sure you're building your UIs. I don't think Unity gives you much of a choice, but building them in a canvas, there's a lot. If you're new to making games or to making UIs, one thing that's a serious challenge with them is they need to work for different aspect ratios and different size screens, and potentially even like totally different kinds of devices, like phone versus desktop or something. So all of the built-in UI tools in Unity help make doing those kinds of things easier. So anytime you add UI elements, you're going to get this canvas by default. And then, so within that, we're going to be building an inventory item list, and that's kind of our parent container for everything else that we're doing. You'll notice too, over here, there's going to be a scroll rectangle attached to that. And that's a built-in Unity component, and that's what's going to kind of keep track of the scroll bar and the viewport. And the viewport is like the area that we're looking at, and we're going to build the scrolling like within that area. You can see over here on the right, it's tracking both the viewport and the scroll bar. So then, yeah, as I mentioned, the viewport is just going to be the area that is scrollable, and it's masked so that if anything falls outside of it, we're not going to see it. And if I turn this on, you can actually see what that mask, like what the masked, what's included and what's not masked, I guess is the best way to say that. So it's kind of alternating in blue there. It might not be super easy to see. I'll turn it back off. And then, so within that viewport is the content that we want to scroll. And that content, we're going to use a vertical layout group. And what that's going to do is it's going to control all the items that appear within it, so all the buttons, and space them out so that as just we add more buttons to it, it's going to automatically add them in a reasonable way. And then we can just basically size the content, size this content to fit to the contained, the size of the contained elements, I guess is the best way to describe it. And then, yeah, within that, we're just going to introduce a whole bunch of buttons. So I know this probably isn't the most exciting part of the series here, but it's a very foundational piece. We just need to get a way to get a whole bunch of items into a list that we can, buttons into a list that we can click on and have them do what we want them to do. So yeah, with that said, the only thing that's left is our scroll bar over here. And there's really not a lot to say about it other than it's just a scroll bar component. So yeah, I'm gonna just remove all this stuff and we can build it up from scratch just so you can see how all this fits together. So let's go ahead and we'll get rid of this. And so the first thing we will want to do, let's go ahead and get rid of the event system too. That gets added along with the canvas. Uh-oh, my right clicks aren't showing up in here. That's not good. I may have to just narrate through this, I guess. I'm not sure why. Let's see, let's try that again. Ah, okay, never mind. That was just me having problems. So here we can just add UI canvas, and that's going to give us the overall canvas for controlling all of the UI. And here we go. Nothing too exciting there. You'll notice we also got our event system along with that for free. And then within our canvas, we're going to want to go ahead and create, let's see, let's just make it an image for now in case we want to add an image background. So UI image, and we'll just go ahead and rename that. And that will be our inventory item list. And then within that, I'm just gonna change the alpha on this a bit too. Just bump it down a little bit. Okay. Yeah, I'm just knocking it down slightly so it looks more like an overlay on the background. So just close that out. And then eventually we're going to want to add a scroll rectangle on this, but we need the other pieces to include with that. So for now I'm going to ignore that, and I'm going to add another child object to this, which is going to be another image. So we'll do UI image, and then I'll rename that, and this is going to be our viewport. And on this one, we're going to want a mask, so we can do add component, and we'll get rid of that and just do mask. And I'm going to change the color on this just so we can see it. Just pick something that's kind of light. And then within that, we're going to add our content. And that's going to be what's actually containing all of the different buttons. So we'll go ahead and do create empty. We'll rename that. got a trailing slash in that I don't want. And then within that, we can create our button. There we go. We've got a button. So you can see here also that mask is kicking in. The button's getting clipped on the left and the right. It's getting masked. So you're just seeing part of the button there. And then the last item that we need is within the inventory item list, we need to add a UI scroll bar. Which by default you can see is coming in as a horizontal scroll bar. So what we can do is scroll down here, and instead of the direction being left to right, we will change it from bottom to top. We might have to play around with that in a bit, but we can deal with that when we get to it. So you'll notice right away that the menu looks a little goofy, so we're going to make it a little bit bigger. Let's make this thing 200 wide and 300 tall. Actually, let's make it 250 wide by, let's see, how big's 400? Is that too big? That's probably okay. So here you can see that's going to be like the entire menu, and we're going to end up sliding that over to the left. That's probably not a bad place to start. So then our viewport is this area that is getting masked. It will mask off whatever is within it. So let's make that bigger. 200 wide. That's probably good. We'll have a scroll bar next to it, so that's looking all right. And then let's change the height to it's 352 small. Let's make it a little bigger, like 370. Yeah, we'll see how that works. And then we can just take our scroll bar too and slide that over a bit. Let's try to kind of roughly position these things where we want them. That's not looking too bad. And then the scroll bar, let's just make that taller. So what do we want? 250, 350, 370. I think 370 is what we had for the other stuff. So that's not looking too bad. We've got our scroll bar the same height. Let's move it over just slightly. I just want to disconnect it a little bit from the content, from the viewport. And we'll also slide the viewport over just a tiny amount. Now, it'll look better if we have consistent spacing around every edge, but that's a detail we could tweak later when we get further into things. So, so just really quick, we can go back over here. Just a second. Okay, so on this inventory item list is where we're going to want our scrolling rectangle. So we can go down here and add a scroll rect, and you'll see the little icon for that has like a scroll bar on the bottom and top. And there's a bunch of settings for this. We'll want to tweak those. So it has a place to drop a game object for your horizontal scroll bar and your vertical scroll bar. We only have a vertical one, so I'm just going to pull that over into vertical. And then it also has a place to drop your viewport. So just grab a hold of your viewport on the left and drop it in there. And there's different types of movement. You can pick what you want. I'm just going to pick clamp for now. So yeah, I think that is looking good. And then now our viewport's set up okay. We've got this mask set up. Yeah, let's see. Just want to check out the viewport here and see if that looks how I want it to be. I think it's looking pretty good. And then on our content, we need to do some things here. So for the content, we want to add a component. So we have we want to add a vertical layout group, and that's going to help us control what appears, how items appear in this list or in this layout group. So you'll notice it bumped the button over here. So what we want to do is just change it to upper center for now. And let's see, anything else that we need to tweak in here? We could change the spacing a bit so that as we add things, they get spaced out better. So let's go ahead and do that. And then let's see, we also want to add a content size fitter. And we'll change that to the minimum size for horizontal fit and minimum size for vertical fit. And I think we're good there. And I think if we adjust this pivot for our anchor to 1, this will go to the top. Let's see. Nope, not quite. I think I might be missing something. Let me see. Well, let's just go with that for now. So sorry, I'm just tweaking some values here. Give me a second. Upper center, minimum. So yeah, let's see what we get with this real quick. I'm just gonna run it. So we have a button and we have a scroll bar, but it's not gonna allow us to scroll just because there's not enough content in there at the moment. I'm trying to figure out why this isn't moving the content up to the top. I'm just checking my references here for a second. I'm going to double check that the inventory list is set up correctly. Okay, I see what's going on. So inside the scroll rectangle, there's also a game object reference for content. I just didn't have that set, so let's pull that over there. And then I'm going to hop back to here and see if when I change this now, if it makes a difference. There we go. That's what I was looking for. So I think we're looking good. And then I'm just going to make the button as wide as the content area. So let's just change the width from 160 to 200, I think. Yeah, so that's going to take up the full width there. And then we can put whatever we want in here. Whatever, let's call it ebony bow for now. All this stuff is going to get replaced later. I'm just using this as an example. So, so now I think we're probably in a good spot. Let me go ahead and just duplicate our buttons here. There's probably a faster way to do this, but it's been a while since I've been using Unity a lot. And what we'll do eventually, we don't want to generate these lists manually. So what I'm doing in this video is just focusing on purely like getting the base UI elements in place that we're going to need. And then in future videos, we'll come through and actually just dynamically generate this list. And we'll probably use scriptable objects or something like that to hold the data, or at least the item descriptions and stuff. So you can see as I'm adding to this, that now the masking is causing these items at the bottom to be hidden, which is good. So now we have a list that's longer than the container, and those items are just being masked off the bottom. And we probably don't need to see the color on that mask, so I'm just going to turn that off. Cool. So now what we should be able to do also is go up to the very top level component within Canvas, which is this inventory item list. And we'll just slide that over here because we'll want to have all this space on the right eventually for showing the rest of the information about the items. So I think that's looking pretty good. Let's run this and see what we get. So here we go. So we got our background here, just this kind of magenta background, and you can see the menu is not exactly white. It's like a slightly transparent overlay of white. And on the left here, as I go over these buttons, you can see they're changing. So if, and I could click on these if I wanted to. They're just not going to do anything at the moment. And then also we have our scroll bar here that is going to move these items around as we, scroll through the list as we move this around. You can make this scroll bar behave differently too if you want to get like the reverse type of movement, so that when you how do I describe this? Right now, if you scroll down, the content's getting kind of pushed up on the left. If you want it to be the reverse, there's a setting that you can use for that, so that as you scroll down, the content goes down. So yeah, that's kind of the basic setup. We'll use that to expand upon in future videos. And as I mentioned, we're going to be trying to get closer to using what you would see in like SkyUI. Give me just a second, I'll pull that back up. So we're going to try to get closer to a setup like this, where we have this table on the left, and then we can kind of go through different categories and select something. So yeah, I think it'll be fun. Thanks for following along. Thanks for all your feedback. It was really helpful to see that just having the code and being able to go through it yourself is really helpful to people. So in future videos, I'll make sure that I include links to the repositories as I go through these videos. And I'll try to keep the commit history clean, so that if you want to step back through the history of the project, that's easy for you to do, to see what the changes are from step to step. So yeah, if you like the video, just hit like. If you want to be notified as other videos come out in the series, make sure you hit subscribe so that you're notified about new videos. Comments really do help, even if you're just asking questions or have even critical feedback, and all that stuff's good to help me figure out what people are interested in and what I can do better. But yeah, thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next one.